today?
It's Mike's Daily Podcast.
That's Mike Matthews talking to you right now in your ear that you're hearing. It's Mike's Daily Podcast. 2,826 at Mike's Daily Podcast in Podcastro Valley 10, the last place on earth in the land of Ameritopica. And I'm gonna sing this song for another 5 seconds. It's really short, and you'll be wanting seconds because you love that song so much. You'll say Mike's singing it again. Mike's Daily Podcast. I will. Next podcast. Okay. Yes. So here's some stuff I'm throwing at you. Mike's of an interesting sort. Daily dating apps. Podcast. Yes, back in the day. Yeah. And I guess was this the 80s where they would videotape you talking to the camera and you would say, hey, I'm looking for someone who's this, this, and this. And then you would go somewhere and watch the videos of other people saying what they want. And then you go, oh, well, that person's cute. I want to talk to them. They sound interesting, etc. And then along came apps. Like the next day. No, actually it was about 20, 30 years later. But then there were apps. Of course, we had to go through all the stuff with the newspapers, what was the want ads in the back or whatever, looking for someone, this, that. There was Craigslist for a while. There was all these websites that popped up. And now apps. And apps have been around a while. And so many people have gotten married because of the apps. But dating apps are for the olds. Just friends, dating apps are increasingly for the olds. This from Rob Black. I produce his podcast, and he is heard on AM 1220 KDOW weekday mornings and on the Cron TV Monday through Thursday in the 9 o'clock hour. Gen Z seems to be somewhat less enamored with dating apps than millennials, is the point of this. 61% of dating apps are being used by people from 30
and here's today's podcast picture
to 49. The majority from 30 to 49 is who are the peoples that are using the apps for dating. I'm going to pick another great picture from my wonderful excursion out to Livermore. See that picture at mikesdailypodcast.com. And I think that's going to, that's what we'll do. See it at mikesdailypodcast.com. We'll have a picture of the late great Basil the Boxer, one of the fantastic Mike excursions we went on together in the years past. We'll do that in a future podcast picture. And you can see past podcast pictures of Basil there at mikesdailypodcast.com. So then, how about 18 to 29-year-olds? They were only 26% that were using dating apps. Nearly 4 in 5 college and grad students don't use dating apps. So let's hear it for that. That's a welcome, refreshing change. I always hated dating apps. I think I went on a date. Well, there was a short little relationship that didn't go so well with someone I met on an app. And I just remember all the questions, so many questions you have to answer. And I know that's all there to try and help you find the right person. But you know Tinder. Yes, some of you do. I never used it. Match.com. I think, is that the one you pay for? OkCupid, Hinge, and Plenty of Fish. All those ones I just mentioned are owned by the company called Match Group. Match Group app users, they have fallen. There's not so many. In fact, they have lost about 14.9 million people. Yes, that's how bad it's turning out. Wow. Down from a peak. You know when the peak was? This surprises me. I would have thought it was earlier, maybe even during COVID. But actually the peak was 2022. That was at 16.5 million. So now they're down. They're down 2. Sorry. They haven't fallen 14.9 million. That would only leave them with about 4 million. Okay. So no, they are down to 14.9 million from a peak of 16.5 million. $1 million. I mean, people, or $1 million, I'll take that. The challenge...
The Newsbleed section.
In this little bit of Newsbleed section, the challenge with dating apps is that if they work effectively, you lose your customers. They're gone. Dating apps, and they're happy, hopefully. Dating apps are trying to not be just dating apps. Dating apps will want to be true human connection platforms. So they may, let's say you need a hiking buddy or a mahjong buddy or something like that. They want to do that. Wasn't that Meetups? Meetups was trying to create groups. That was quite big for a while.
The mic tip.
A little over 10 years ago. That's my tip. Okay, well now there is this bit for those that the dating app worked and now they're getting married. It's officially wedding season. For richer or poor, fast fashion says I do.
Might rip someone a new one.
The most popular wedding date this year will be September 21st. And if you're a manager like I am, you're going to be bound to lose an employee or two. Going to rip the new one there to those employees that decide, hey, I'm going to pick September 21st to magically disappear, or the weekend or the days around that weekend. I had one guy that worked for me.
First of all, I just want to thank everyone for joining us here on this show. This is great.
He took so much time off. He was a full-timer. He took so much time off going to weddings, including his own, that he no longer had any paid time off. He was into the unpaid time off territory, which creates all kinds of craziness and havoc for the HR. HR stands for Havoc Resides, I think. But yes, he informed me I still am in touch with him.
For your entertainment.
This isn't him, though.
The one.
Yeah.
The only.
Thank you.
Mike Matthews.
I don't know how you do that thing with your voice. But the guy that used to be my employee, I still keep in touch with him. He's no longer my employee. But he told me, yeah, this year I'm going to 4 weddings. So be thankful that you're not my boss anymore. And I am thankful. So... tying the knot these days means coughing up serious cash. That's always been the case. But check it out, these numbers. The average cost of a U.S. wedding is going to be, or last year was $35,000. The year before was $30,000. So it looks like it's
scavenger hunt.
As I'm looking through this, goes up about $5,000 a year. Wow. More than half, 56% of newlyweds took on credit card debt because of their wedding. 31% said they regret how much they spent on their wedding. 31%. That's not a whole lot. I mean, but that is a lot. Weddings under 1,000 have a lower probability. Oh, this is a ridiculous random post here. But this is what the statistics bear out. Weddings under $1,000 have a lower probability of divorce than those weddings that exceeded $20,000. Keep that in mind. And the fashion industry has taken notice. Abercrombie and Fitch, and yes, I'm one of those people that throws an M at the very beginning of that Amber. It's actually Abercrombie and Fitch. Launched a wedding shop with prices that were lower, between $80 and $150. Forever 21 has a bridal collection in the range of $9 to $50, and Shine, the world's largest online-only fast fashion brand, offers wedding dresses for $50 to $200. And usually wedding dresses start at $2,000. That's my little bit of
MTV News. You hear it first.
I'm Kurt Loder, and the new album by Billie Eilish has just dropped. In it, I think she is mentioning her love for a woman. So she's being pretty much just out there about it, if you didn't already know. So Billie Eilish, this is everywhere you go in social media, you hear about this, and you see her face everywhere you go these days. Okay, nearly 20% of Americans are using 90%.
What in the world was that about?
It was just a little aside. That's what that was about. Little pop culture aside. 90% of their credit. Nearly 20% of Americans using 90% of their credit. The nation's collective credit card balance stands at about $1.12 trillion, and that is a near record high. The average... I know! Someone just threw their credit card through a window. The average credit card balance is about $6,360. This was last year. And almost 7% of credit card balances fell into serious delinquency. But let's say you want to
News random.
Pay for a car, but not pay for it all at once. This is my news random for you. There are auto incentives like dealer cash and discounts that are coming back, but about 7% financing has deals for buyers. The 7.1% financing that is going on is not so good for the buyers. The average monthly car loan payment in the U.S. is about $738. $738. Isn't that interesting? For new vehicles, and $532 for used cars if you're going to do a average monthly car loan payment. Outside of Café Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth, Podcastro Valleyton. Look who's here right now. Hello, my gosh, it's Madame Rootabega. Always, that was very interesting. I've been married. Woo! Can you count the number of times you've been married on a hand? Yes.
The Myclopedia in Seneca.
This is in Seneca, this Myclopedia. This is a question I shouldn't have asked you, Madame Rootabega. Do you think that wasn't a question I should have asked you? Yes. Do you like to dance? No. What? I don't believe that, Madame Rootabega. If you've been married all those times and you don't like to dance, that just doesn't seem very, possible in that Myclopedia in Seneca world. But, okay. Thank you so much. Oh! Did you know this little bit? This was sent to me in a news...
Matthew's News.
In a news email sent to me. And I guess this happened on May 10th. Accuracy in Media deployed a mobile billboard to the UC Berkeley Law commencement ceremony, exposing members of 9 student organizations who signed a proclamation banning speakers who support the state of Israel from participating in campus events. The billboard featured a website and corresponding action alert, which allowed supporters to send messages to their student organizations in question, condemning... Condemning their behavior and hateful views. The billboard deployment and corresponding action alert represented the latest installment of the Anti-Semitic Accountability Project, which is going on because of...
Well, I like
The Whiny White Man Wine List.
Actually, no, because of Accuracy in Media, or AIM, and they were pointing people to berkeleybansjews.com with that billboard. I was not there. I did not see that. But this riles me up, all these protests that I see. And then we have this little bit about baloney. And let's see, that is... Oh, did you know that the Joe Rogan Experience, Crime Junkie, and the Daily are at the top 3 of the Billboard... I mean, not the Billboard, but the podcast charts. if you didn't know. They remained from, let's see, the last quarter of last year to the first quarter of this year. But there have been some interesting shifts further down the list as I pour you a root beer to take in all this information. So yeah, number one is the Joe Rogan Experience, though I don't know a single person that listens to the Joe Rogan Experience. Number two is Crime Junkie, though I don't know anybody who listens to Crime Junkie. Number three is The Daily. That is the New York Times one. I used to listen to that all the time. And then that got so popular that a lot of radio stations, mostly national public radio stations, were carrying it. And then at number four is Jason and Travis Kelce's podcast called New Heights. And that probably was after the shooting, people wanted to hear their views on what happened. The number five is Dateline NBC. And then the rest is rounded out by This American Life and that Smartless podcast that they paid a bunch of money to Jason Bateman and his buds. Spotify, I think, gave him a bunch, or was it Amazon? I forget now. And I think there's three other ones. Morbid Stuff You Should Know, Call Her Daddy. So that's about it. That's the height. And that's according to Edison Research. So there you go. That's all fascinating things. Adam Carolla, who was one of the first people to really get into podcasting. He left radio, got into podcasting. He had gotten quite popular in the world of radio. He had gotten into producing movies and TV shows and such. He says, I like the freedom of podcasting. With podcasting, you can really mess around with the form and the format. You can do as much time as you like without having to pause for commercials. Very true. But here's the thing, is a lot of people don't mess around with the format. You hear basically people doing things, doing podcasts that are, I mean, they'll set up their own format. I guess there are different podcasts that follow formats that are different from other things. Maybe that's what he's saying. But I notice a lot of podcasters, they will create a podcast and then stick to the format to the point that it becomes uninteresting. In that they're just reading the same thing week after week, or they're interviewing the same type, asking the same questions in the same interviews. There's a lot of sameness is what I'm trying to say. Look who else is here.
Hello there, Mike. This is Valentino, the party attendant.
And this is Bison Bentley. Do you know that?
Mike, we're like the same guys that show up on the podcast, like every podcast day.
Yeah, same guys. Do you know that? Actually, you guys don't show up every podcast. That's by design. Did I say that out loud? Well, I don't take it back or anything. That's the truth. We try and mix it up with all the Café Anyway characters that show up so that you enjoy them. Like I've enjoyed this podcast so immensely. So the next podcast, we will have some other people. See, I'm proving this to you now by saying it with words. Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer will stop by, maybe some of Madame Rootabega's ex-husbands, and we will answer your questions that you call me with at this phone number.
Call Mike at the Café Anyway hotline. Area code 510-228-4640. Will you shut ups? Liberty Nation Freedom Foam for All.
And with more ways to reach me and to talk about anything else and to see all things Mike's Daily Podcast, the podcast pictures, past podcasts, and so on, here is a frame.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com.
Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com.
See you tomorrow. Bye!